bit cooler today, so I'm gonna finish digging that footing and hopefully get all of the formwork and Rio put in at the same time by the end of the day. Long day, formwork done, Rio done, also lots of Rio down in the holes for extra reinforcement. Actually reached sandstone for about 3.5 feet, so I've got that drilled into the sandstone as well, so it's nice and solid. Just need to get everything packed up now. Back into the workshop with year 10. One who's stained his job, that was the one who did the black t-shirt top for his cushion. This one's actually attached his top to it, so I asked him if he was going to do a finish on it, and he said, I'm going to leave it plain, so it's a bit of a thing on Mark's in terms of finishing, but that's how he feels like he'd like it to be finished. I love the way his cushion has turned out. It's really turned out really well. Now we've got a couple of students starting up on the mallets. The girl who's working on this one, she's done pretty well getting this down to roundish. We'll then set it to the exact sizes that they can turn between the centres. Another one just set up here for a bit of practice. So he wanted to practice with some of the other tools because all he used is the gouge so far. And there was a couple of other students getting ready to do that practice, so they were just preparing their blanks. This is an offcut from one of those. So they either just use 40 by 40 pine or Meranti for the practice. And then the mallet's made from Meranti as well, but we've got some which is a lot denser. This stuff, the 70 by 70 stuff we've got is a lot denser. Makes for a good mallet head and handle. You just got to select the timber out by the weight and the colour. Well, the rain's eased up now. It had started to ease, and I left the shelter of the building to run to the car, and it got heavy again. It wasn't easy getting the bag in the back because there's a massive puddle in the truck. 11 construction this morning. A lot of the kids have started their assessment task of doing their joints and their
realising they've got to have the accuracy, but they get to use the drop saw, so they're working along fairly well. I'm going to say third to a half of the class diving into it enthusiastically. 12 timber, still planning projects. We've got to get them started soon. Report season has already started. We've got our interim reports, which are just for 7 and 11 because they're starting school and starting senior school. They're due soon. I'm at uni tonight. That's where I'm heading to now.
Just finished a 2-hour lesson with year 11. It's hard to maintain their interest especially when they're making errors. If you make a mistake, you get frustrated, you want to give up, so that's quite common this early in the course. The double's going to be perfect for when we do concreting and things, but I might have to break this lesson up into theory to start with and then some practice, but at least one thing, they do clean up well.
Another early one, and I waited till the dark disappeared before I turned the camera on. Second white card course running today, and while we ended up getting approval for the course to start and finish later to allow our kids to get there, because a lot of our senior kids, or a lot of our high school kids in general, they're tasked with the responsibility of dropping their younger siblings off at school down in the primary school and the preschool, which is attached to our site. There was a couple that arrived late to the last course because they had to drop off siblings, and so they weren't allowed into the course because it had started. I asked the company if there was a chance of them starting a bit later, and they had to go through the getting approval from SafeWork New South Wales, because once you set in a course, you're supposed to stick to that time. And when they explained to SafeWork, look, it's a group of school kids, they need to be able to start a little later. They'll finish later, but they'll start later. And thankfully, in their wisdom, SafeWork New South Wales approved it. If you want to make a change with SafeWork, you need 8 business days notice. So we were lucky to be able to do this, and I think it's good for our kids. That being said, the instructor of the course still wanted to arrive there early. So I've still had to get up early and going in there to meet him at 7:30. Bites a little today because we actually are running our Year 6 information night tonight at the school, which is a night where we invite parents of Year 6 students from the feeder schools to come up and get some information about the school for their children for next year. And so we do that tonight, starting at about 6 o'clock. So it's going to be a long day. And I actually think we finish at 7:30, so I'm going to be at work for 12 hours. So it's going to be a long day. And I know there are businesses and there are professions that do 12-hour days, but yeah, it's going to be a long day.
Just finished with year 12, and one of them's done his sawhorse. Didn't do it successfully for competence because he's out on some of his measurements. He's got a 2 mil tolerance and he's out by 10 and 15 on some spots, but in terms of his HSC assessment, he's done enough to do the HSC, just not get the competency certificate. The other thing they did today, you just see the pegs. They're starting to peg out string lines for their formwork assessment. Start out with a 3 by 3 metre square, so they've just started the first part. They've got two sets of string lines in for the first 2 corners, or first corner. Used Pythagoras to make sure it was going square. I left a mallet outside. That's eventually what this formwork should look like in terms of the main shape. I haven't got the cutout section in there yet. And that doesn't show the height or anything like that. So we've now got a few hours to kill until the Year 6 information night, because it's just gone 3 o'clock.
Another successful white card yesterday. Whole stack of students gaining their card, their qualification. A number of them being my vet students in year 11. So that's good. They'll be able to go off to work placement, which is until next term. They did their study yesterday, and today I'm going to be doing my own day of study. Signed up for a new course that was, well, professional development course around the HSC, and it's one of the first times I've seen one targeted directly at industrial arts or industrial technology. So I signed up for it because you just never see them, and I had to prepare in advance with it, uploading sample assessments and sample student work for that assessment. And I think the way it's been told, it's all online, it's all Zoomed. Actually, it's Microsoft Teamed, and I think it starts out as group session right at the start, and then they break you into small groups based specifically on your targeted subject area, and you work with other teachers via Teams, video chatting and whatnot. I'm going to be locking myself away in the trade school office for the day so I don't get disturbed, because if I sat in my staff room I wouldn't be able to do the video conferencing because I'd have other people around me. So at least in the trade school office I should hopefully remain undisturbed for the day. We'll see how that goes. It's classed as a semester as professional development. There's going to be multiple sessions, and today is just the starting session for mine. There were multiple days that this session could be run. This one just happened to be the best day for me, and actually incidentally for the school, because I only have the 1 year 12 class, which means it's a really, really light day that doesn't require a whole stack of cover. And that's one of the things that you really, like when you need to go out and do professional development, the last thing you want to have to do is set a whole lot of work for your other classes, hoping that a teacher's going to run it the way you want it. There's an expectation that senior students should be able to work on their own. They've got access to Google Classroom and things, and they then have access to the library, or they already have their own iPad or laptop, usually iPads with our year 12s, so that if you're absent for whatever reason, you can set work or leave work, be in contact with the kids via the Google Classroom, and they can just get on with their work. And like my year 12 timber class, everything is their own work at the moment. That's all their design work, their research. They don't require cover. They'll be able to just continue on with their work. Some of the other days that this course was being run, and I looked at my timetable, I was on all day. I had multiple like practical classes. I think I had year 10s. And that's not the sort of class, that's not the sort of day you want to skip out on to do professional development, because you've got to set a lot of work, and if they're practical classes, the kids aren't going to enjoy having to do theory for a change.
Got some workers in, and we finally got that extra step leading out to the trade school, which will make it a much safer because it's not such a giant drop anymore. I like that they've done it for the whole width, so there won't be any sort of accidental stepping off in the wrong spot. And the other thing they were here to do was the door jamb around this door. Actually, the door jamb was fine and the door was fine, but all the framing behind it was just eaten out by termites. So they've had to pull all of this out and replace it all. with brand new materials.
Bit of rain overnight. Footing in the front yard's filled up a little bit, so I'll have to get that out. Organised for some sand, gravel and cement to be delivered tomorrow on Saturday. Well, that means doing it all myself, mixing, pouring, which will take better part of Saturday, I'd say. In terms of initial outlay, cost-wise, it's a lot cheaper. I think it was around $330 something, 2.5 tonne of sand, gravel and 14 bags of cement, roughly a cubic metre worth. And I know when I organised the concrete taxi for work, we're only doing like 0.4 of a cubic metre and it costs $360, I think. But you've got to factor in the fact that you're using their equipment, their labour for the mixing and all that sort of stuff. So that'll arrive in the morning. So I'll have to get some plastic set out up on the top of the driveway for them to empty that out onto. Forecast for tomorrow is meant to be sunny, and then it's meant to be rainy from Sunday again.
End of the day, student just first practice on the lathe. It was actually his second practice. His first practice wasn't that great. It was a bit of a soft piece of timber, so he got a new piece. The girl who's doing the mallet, so there's her mallet head, and she's been turning down the handle for where the head needs to go onto, and starting to get a little bit of shaping. And another student here is getting set up. This piece flew off the lathe, so he's taken it off, reset it up, and he'll get it on their next lesson, whenever that is next week. I've got a couple of Year 12s who were out on work placement this week in construction, a couple more who are going out next week, so that classes are kind of a bit split. It's been a bit of a crazy week. But it's the weekend, we'll see what happens on the weekend and then next week.